Provincial authorities say 2 teens who were the subject of an Amber Alert have been located. Police say the 13-year-old boy and 15-year-old girl were found safe after they were last seen in Toronto yesterday morning. They say a suspect is in custody and no one else is being sought in connection to the Amber Alert. The alert was issued at about 11:30 last night by the OPP at the request of Toronto Police. It was cancelled about an hour later. Officials say the teenagers were last seen in the city's West End with their father, who they allege abducted them.
You know, we look at really 3 different things that we have to balance when we're governing. 3 different priorities. We have to balance the priority to put money back in people's pockets, and we're doing that. We have to balance the priority of investing in critical services. And as I talked about today, we're putting $1.3 billion back into critical services. And of course, we have a commitment and a plan to balance the budget by 2022.
Ontario's fall fiscal update shows a government trying to undo the damage caused by a year of cuts. The fall economic statement boosts spending by $1.3 billion, largely due to a reversal of cuts to programs and services that were included in the spring budget. The shift comes as the Progressive Conservatives are attempting to adopt a new tone following a tumultuous first year and a half in power. Ontario's deficit is now expected to be $9 billion for this fiscal year, down from the $10.3 billion projection in the budget.
We were fortunate because of the lower than expected deficits. We had to borrow $4.1 billion less this year than last year, so that's always good news. But we are focused on that issue of making sure that the province is on a solid financial footing. But as I say, governing is complicated. We balance 3 competing priorities. We know that people need relief and financial relief, and we're giving it to them. We know that there's critical services that need investment, and we're making those investments, and we have a plan to balance the budget by 2023.
All the government did today is say that the deep cuts that they announced in the spring are going to be delayed a little bit, but they're still going to be cuts. They're not saying that they're going to ensure that our education system still has those 10,000 teachers on the job in a couple years from now. They're not saying that. They're not saying that they're going to invest in hospitals to the extent that the hospitals had required or had requested in the last budget consultations. They're not saying that. So I think people need to be really aware. This is the same game they played when they announced their budget last spring.
Cannabis retailers will soon be able to sell products online or over the phone for in-store pickup as the Ontario government adopts a click and connect sales model to expand access to legal marijuana. Finance Minister Rod Phillips announced the proposed changes in the government's fall economic statement yesterday, saying they will decrease waits for cannabis and help combat the black market. The shift comes as the Progressive Conservative government pledges to lift a cap it imposed on the number of cannabis stores in Ontario. The government had initially said there would be no cap on the number of retail pot shops after cannabis was legalized. That decision, though, marked a change of course from the previous Liberal government, which created the Ontario Cannabis Store and had planned to tightly control cannabis sales through government-owned stores similar to the LCBO. But a supply shortage prompted the Tory government last December to cap the initial number of pot retail licenses to just 25, so operators would be able to open. The number of legal pot outlets in Ontario is increasing from 25 to 75 this fall. The government also said yesterday it will allow licensed producers to have retail stores on each of their production sites to further increase access. Re-elected, newly elected, and even defeated Liberal MPs will gather today on Parliament Hill for the first time since Canadians clipped the wings of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government in last month's election. The 2-hour get-together is not a formal caucus meeting. It's just a chance to congratulate winners and commiserate with losers. Trudeau's grip on power was ultimately weakened, with the Liberals winning 157 seats. That's 13 shy of a majority in the House of Commons. The party was shut out entirely in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Unlike Conservative leader Andrew Scheer, Trudeau does not face a potential revolt over his leadership, but returning Liberal MPs do expect him to make some changes, among them paying more attention to the views of Caucus, bringing more diverse voices into his inner circle, returning to more positive messaging, and concentrating more on communicating the Liberal government's successes on the economic front.